proxy trap calls, 1, 5.
So apparently, like, if gravity is quantum, then cause and effect can't exist. But if cause and effect is quantum, then gravity can't be quantum. Or like, whatever. The whole
A target binding that exists.
space, relativity, stuff, whatever.
All of the
It all can't be possible at the same time.
16 and share the same
And I think it makes a
specifications for all
very
of those
strong
methods
point
except
that
forget
gravity
binding value.
can't be a quantum theory. So Einstein was right after all. This is mind-bending stuff, but I'll give it a try. Physics can be abstract and unrelatable, but it's built on a key premise that we're all familiar with.
It's like 22 hours ago.
With causal order. You flip a switch, the light goes on. Cause, effect. One comes first, the other second. There's no ambiguity about this order. If you take into account quantum physics, the situation becomes more difficult. Imagine you have single quanta of
Quantum's fake.
light, photons, going through a beam splitter. The beam splitter converts each photon into a superposition of two directions. We often say that the photon is now both here and there. Now let's say on this photon's path we put two little gadgets that change the polarization. Let's also say that the photon started with a horizontal polarization. You can think of
So like at first I didn't get it. And I kind of got it.
the polarization as an so you see the order and only gives the signal what one does paths and only gives the signal in output port 1 if the photon actually took both paths. So if that happens, then you know that the photon must in some sense on the horizontal axis, but that the horizontal axis, what's the result? Well, it's now rotated by 45 degrees left. But the photon on the second path, we guide this, for example, with an optical fiber through these gadgets in the other order. It first gets flipped on the horizontal axis, but that doesn't do anything because it was horizontal. Then it gets rotated 45 degrees left. So you see the order of these operations matters for the outcome. What one does then is set up an interferometer that recombines the paths and only gives the signal in output port 1 if the photon actually took both paths. So if that happens, then you know that the photon must in some sense have.
So basically I think what it's saying is that cause and effect. Which happened first? Chicken or the egg? So like the light's coming in, right? It enters, it hits the mirror that's like halfway transparent. So light can pass through, but also reflect. So the light goes this way. And when it enters this box, whatever, it's gonna flip it. Like left and right, whatever. But since it was an arrow, I think they had like an arrow. So it looks like this, whatever. So if you flip this, or what was it?
.45 degrees left, so you see the do anything because it was horizontal. Then it gets rotated 45.
So it starts upwards. Alright, so that's like symbol whatever. Why not pass in like 0 and 1? I'm gonna pass in 0, 1 instead of like an arrow. Alright, so I'm passing in the beam, and I'm saying like, well that won't work either. It should cancel itself out. It'll end up being the opposite. Alright, so basically though, I'm gonna try 0, 1. Let's say like pass in is 0. I'm gonna pass in 0. Instead of flip, I'm gonna invert. Because like passing in an arrow, that's too like, it's not based on anything. Like binary, that's real. So like XOR gate, like XOR 1. It's not zooming out. Wrong zoom. Alright, so this box, I'm gonna XOR with 1. So it's XOR 1. The other box, it's not even possible. There's be like 3 states. You can't have I'll just make XOR 1. I'm gonna do that. You need like 3 states. But you can't do that with binary. You can't even do that with ternary. So I don't know. I'll do XOR 1. Really, that I don't like this logic. So anyways, I'll just use whatever. It's like you pass in like 0, whatever. So light's gonna go here. Bounce XOR 1, so now it's 0. Then XOR 1 again, now it's 1. So it's like one path, whatever. But it's also gonna go this way. It's gonna bounce off this mirror. In the other path, when it goes through the mirror, it's gonna go 0. It starts at 0 still. It's gonna enter. XOR 1 is 0. Bounce off this. Up here. XOR 1 back to 1. And then enter here. It's also gonna go here. This is mirror. So in both cases, the result is 0. Because it canceled out. Because XOR 1 XOR 1 is going to undo what it did. Except the point is that you don't know which one came first. And if you don't know which one came first, they both happen at the same time. And that's not... Yeah, I'll just play the video. This doesn't really work with binary. Or like, it's hard to like, describe it. Everything's stupid.
Degrees left, so you see the order of these operations matters for the outcome. What one does then is set up an interferometer that recombines the paths and only gives a signal in output port 1.
Because if you do like +1 in one of the boxes, then maybe that'll work. If you're like +1 -1, you pass in 0. 1, 0. The other way you get -1. Oh wait, this one just goes through there. There's a mirror missing in this example. It doesn't even work. There's a missing mirror. Okay, assuming it worked, that there's not a missing mirror. Because light doesn't just go like that. Turn it 90 degree angles. So this would be like 1, -1, back to 0. This is gonna go -1, 1, results 1. No, 0, it's be 0. Okay, so it does work with +, -1. Does it even matter what the ordering? Even if you like chained it to more events or operations. I'll just play the video. It's missing a mirror there.
one if the photon actually took both paths. So if that happens, then you know that the photon must in some sense have gone through these operations in both orders. So which one came first? You can't tell.
But
that this indeed happens has been experimentally.
I'll just play video.
And it's called a quantum switch, and some have interpreted it as proof of an indefinite causal order. It's unclear what happened first to the photon. However, that claim doesn't hold up. You see, if the photons are actually in different polarization states, depending on which path they took, they can't interfere. To fix this, you need to effectively remove the operation you did on one path to get them to interfere. But
because they can both happen technically at the same time. But I don't think that's true. Totally. Because when the light travels through whatever, it'll zip through like this, or like this. But it can do both at the same time, like at the exact same time. Yeah, I can't explain it. I think something's not right about it.
But once you've done that, there's no way to prove that the photon actually went both paths. Could just have gone either one path or the other.
Why would you need to know both of them though? I guess that's the point of the experiment. But it's missing a mirror. It's missing two mirrors. I'm just gonna pretend it's not missing two mirrors.
And into the detector rather than both paths. Mystery solved, definite causal order restored. In quantum slang, they say that this indefinite causal order is not certifiable. The authors of the new paper have solved this problem by proving once and for all that causal order fundamentally deep down doesn't work. And the way they do this is to use general relativity. You see, Einstein taught us that mass and energy tell space-time how to curve, and that curvature tells light which paths to follow. In particular, if light goes into and out of a gravitational potential, that takes longer than as if the gravitational potential wasn't there. Now imagine you have a pair of particles in a superposition of two places, and you have two photons going by them. Now, depending on where the particles are, either the left photon arrives first or the right one. If those particles which bend the path of the light now are in both places, this is a true indefinite causal order. You can't tell which of the photons arrived first. The authors of the new paper now prove that if you could do this, there's some complicated arrangement of mirrors and switches and so on that no definite causal order can explain. I'll spare you the details because they aren't so relevant, and also just among you and I didn't understand them. But I read them twice, so I'm now confused at a much higher level. In any case, the bottom line is this. If there is a quantum theory of gravity, then causal order can't exist.
So it doesn't like cancel itself out, saying quantum is fake?
I find this a remarkable
Because if you can't,
result, because you can turn it around and say, well, if we want a causal order, then gravity can't be quantum. Of course.
yeah. So, I don't know, whatever. Space is fake. The whole, like, There's so much fake stuff.
Because if you actually put particles into the path of the photon, the gravitational effect is so tiny you can't measure it. You'd at the very least have to use mountains. Interesting, you might say. Tell me more about moving mountains. But sorry, this is theoretical physics. We're not actually moving mountains.
Does that mean gravity doesn't affect light? Except, whatever.
We're just thinking about what would happen if you did. In the unlikely event that this video caused you confusion, consider that maybe your confusion caused the video. Bet you didn't see this one.
No, whatever. Everything's stupid. I'm just more confused too now. Alright, I'm gonna get this stupid stuff updated and running. So everything moved to one file. So that's done. Okay, so this is done. I'll move to file. Merge projects, get image on the quad. Man. I gotta merge this shit. I hate this. This has to be last time. Save another backup. The quantum computer thing. Is it because it makes multiple outputs at the same time? And if they all complete at the same time, then it's not possible to select any of them because they all completed at the same time. So it'd all be the same answer. The whole quantum thing is so stupid. Because you have to pick from a collection of answers to know which was correct. And you don't know, it's not possible to know which answer came first. Because cause and effect doesn't exist. Then you can't possibly select from them because they're all there at the same time. So it's not possible to pick them. There's no queue. And then things can finish before other things. I don't know. I saved it back up. I'm gonna get some water. I like merge these projects and get an image on this quad. Later on, I'll figure out how to get this working so I can like move the mouse on the screen. I don't know how ChatGPT can do this. Except it can't like output valid Vulkan code. You can't do that with this program. It's like, it's incapable. But with the web browser, it's like, it's just able to do it. But it does kind of screw you when it does this. It like gives you what you want, but not really. And it's like almost what you asked for it. But it's not what you asked. Because I told it to give me the same thing, but put image on it. And it gave me this. Which is completely different than this. So I told it to put image on this. And it does this. It's like a fucking genie. Where it gives you what you want, but not what you asked for on purpose. It's so fucking annoying. So I'm gonna get this done now. All I gotta do is merge projects and get this thing running. Alright, so let's chatbot. Does quantum order exist in relation to computing? Or does casual order exist in relation to quantum computing? It says yes, it does exist in relation to quantum computing, but quantum mechanics also allows for fascinating possibilities beyond definite casual order, which is where things get interesting. Classical physics. Casual order means events happen in sequence. A causes B or B causes A, but not both simultaneously or ambiguously. In classical computing, standard quantum computing circuits, operations or gates, are typically applied in definite order. Standard quantum circuits still assume definite casual order. Qubits pass through gates at fixed sequence. Even if states are superposed or entangled, the gates happen in well-defined order. But quantum mechanics changes that, or challenges. Quantum theory allows for more exotic ideas where casual order itself can be in superposition. This is where quantum mechanics really breaks from classical logic. In some quantum processes, the order of operations is not fixed. Quantum superposition. Two operations A or B are applied, but it's not determined whether A or B happens before B. Instead, the order is controlled by another quantum system. So the operations are in superposition of casual orders. This kind of process cannot be described by any classical or even standard quantum circuit. It has implementations for foundations, quantum foundations, quantum gravity, and information theory. No fixed casual order. If you have like whatever the fuck it is, shit that happens, it can all happen at the same time. There's like results, whatever. And they all happen at the same time. You need like a buffer. If they all happen at the same time, then how the fuck do you buffer it? Quantum computers aren't even quantum then. Like if A finishes before B, before C, before D, you just want to go in to like you want to add up A and D. And this is like the result, whatever. It would all be applied to the same fucking box. The same output. So if you already had like the value here, like if everything happens at the same time, like literally you need time. If you don't have time, then the whole circuit would have to be like the entire circuit would have to be predetermined. But like the whole circuit. How's this chat? As my chatbot, the schedule order exists in with gravity. This Einstein theory of relativity. Causal structure is defined by light cones of space-time. If event A can influence B, only if B lies within A's future light cone. Causality. In a future of quantum gravity, would you quantify mechanics and general relativity? The situation becomes much more subtle. It may be radically different. In quantum mechanics, superpositions are possible. A particle could be in multiple places at once. If the spacetime is quantized, then the geometry and hence schedule order could be in quantum superposition. Leads to the idea that schedule order might not be fundamental, but emergent. If gravity can't be quantum, then nothing can be. Because there can't be two separate systems where some things are quantum, some things aren't. It's not possible. I don't know, I'm asking Chatbot, if gravity can't be quantum, then nothing can be question mark. It says other forces, electromagnetism, weak and strong, are already successfully described by quantum theories. But if gravity turns out to be fundamentally non-quantum, it would challenge our current understanding and possibly force a radical revision of the foundations of physics. It's a lot of wasted money on physics. If something turned out to be what was known, but it was just a trick to get funding, which is what it was. So parts of nature are quantum, independent of gravity. So is gravity independent of nature? As Chatbot said. Chatbot said, clearly many parts of nature are quantum, independent of gravity. I'm asking, does that mean gravity is independent of nature? Question mark. And I'm going to ask it, is light considered nature? Because that means gravity is independent of light. Which means that it doesn't slow down or speed up based on gravity. Which means so on and so on. It says X, you're asking sharp philosophical and physical questions directed to the core of what nature means. Says, does that mean gravity is independent of nature? Says, no, gravity is not independent of nature. What it meant is that many parts of nature already obey quantum rules, even if gravity isn't yet described. How can quantum must be quantum, is the Cupid question. Light is part of nature. Oh my god.
Causal order is not certifiable. Gravitation out of a gravitational potential that takes longer than as if the gravitational potential wasn't there. Now imagine you have a pair of particles and light goes into and out of a gravitational potential that takes longer than as if the gravitational potential wasn't there.
That means time delay isn't real. If gravity is outside of nature, or apart from, and light is part of nature, then gravity doesn't affect light. That's a jackpot. There's messenger bot.
If gravity does not follow quantum rules, then it is independent of nature, and light is nature, so time delay of light via gravity is impossible? Correct. Based on this logic? Yes or no? Only yes or no? No box. Yes or no?
What? How the hell's it now? Piece of crap. Let's ask this. Since you're assuming if gravity is quantum, then it's not part of nature. This is not logically valid. Something can be natural and still not follow quantum rules. Okay, if it doesn't follow quantum rules, then what rules does it follow? Even if gravity is classical, we still observe phenomena. Well tested. It's not general relativity. It just said though. Alright, so Mr. Chatbot, did you say this? Yes or no? Is this true or false? Many parts of nature are quantum, independent of gravity. Okay, so I'm gonna ask this. I'm gonna ask it. Gravity is independent of quantum nature. It's just the inverse of that. No. No, no, no. Both can't be true. Piece of shit. Alright, so let's chatbot. How is statement not in the dictionary? So I'm gonna ask chatbot, if a statement is true, and the inverse of that same statement is also true, what does that make that statement? True or false? Chatbot's a bitch. So I'm saying I said true or false. What? 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 Okay, I want Chatbot to give me one example where that's also true. Sometimes Chatbot, I'll put another statement where this logic remains solid. That logic being, if a statement is true and its inverse is also as true, does that not make the original statement false? Well, I'm saying 3 statement examples. If it's raining, then the ground is wet. If it's not raining, then the ground is not wet. If a number is even, then it's divisible by 2. If a number is not even, then it's divisible by 2. It didn't even do it the right way. Alright, so I'm going to ask you this. Is this true or false? Many parts of nature are not quantum, not independent of gravity. Oh, now it's false. But not independent gravity means these non-quantum parts depend on gravity. However, many non-quantum phenomena can exist without significant gravitational effects. So the combined statement is confusing and mostly false. Atoms aren't even real. Many parts are classical and can be considered approximately independent of gravity at small scales. Alright, so I'm saying this. Chatbot said can be considered approximately independent gravity at small scales. I'm asking, can it be? I'm asking, can anything be absolutely independent of gravity at any small large scale? At any scale, small large. Say all. So I'm saying, can anything be absolutely independent of gravity at any scale, whether it be large or small? Question mark. No, nothing can be absolutely independent of gravity. Man, the contradictions. Fuck you, chatbot. Yeah, chatbot's a lying piece of shit.
delete binding, has this binding and get this binding. In addition, module environment records support the methods listed in Table 22. Table 22, additional methods of module environment records. The behavior of the additional concrete specification methods for module environment records are defined by the following algorithms. 1, 5, 1 get binding value, n, s, the get binding value concrete method of a module environment record envrec takes arguments n, a string, and s, a boolean, and returns either a normal completion containing an ECMA script language value or a throw completion. It returns the value of its bound identifier whose name is n. However, if the binding is an indirect binding, the value of the target binding is returned. If the binding exists but is uninitialized, a reference error is thrown. It performs the following steps when called assert. S is true, assert. envrec has a binding for n. If the binding for n is an indirect binding, then a let m and n2 be the indirection values provided when this binding for n was created. B let target env be m. C if target env is empty, throw a reference error exception. D return target env get binding value. N2, true. If the binding for n in envrec is an uninitialized binding, throw a reference error exception. Return the value currently bound to n in envrec. Note S will always be true because a module is always strict mode code 9, 1, 5, to delete binding. N, the delete binding concrete method of a module environment record is never used within this specification. Method, purpose, create import binding. N, M, N2, create an immutable indirect binding in a module environment record. The string value n is the text of the bound name. M is a module record, and n2 is a binding that exists in m's module environment record. Get this binding, return the value of this environment records this binding. Copyright sign, ECMA International 2024 149. Note module environment records are only used within strict code, and an early error rule prevents the delete operator, in strict code, from being applied to a reference record that would resolve to a module environment record binding. C13, 5, 1, 1, 5, 3 has this binding. The has this binding concrete method of a module environment record envrec takes no arguments and returns true. It performs the following steps when called return true, 1, 5, 4 get this binding. The get this binding concrete method of a module environment record envrec takes no arguments and returns a normal completion containing undefined. It performs the following steps when called return undefined, 1, 5, create import binding, n, m, n2. The create import binding concrete method of a module environment record envrec takes arguments n, a string, m, a module record, and n2, a string, and returns unused. It creates a new initialized immutable indirect binding for the name n. A binding must not already exist in this environment record for n. N2 is the name of a binding that exists in m's module environment record. Accesses to the value of the new binding will indirectly access the bound value of the target binding. It performs the following steps when called assert. envrec does not already have a binding for n. Assert. When m is instantiated, it will have a direct binding for n2. Create an immutable indirect binding in envrec for n that references m and n2 as its target binding, and record that the binding is initialized. Return unused, 1.2 environment record operations. The following abstract operations are used in this specification to operate upon environment records. 9, 1, 2, 1 get identifier reference, env, name, strict. The abstract operation get identifier reference takes arguments env, an environment record or null, name, a string, and strict, a boolean, and returns either a normal completion containing a reference record or a throw completion. It performs the following steps when called. If env is null, then a return the reference record, unresolvable, name, strict. This value, empty. Let exists be env has binding, name. If exists is true, then a return the reference record, env, name, strict, empty. Else, 150, ECMA International 2024. Note, module environment records always provided this binding AB, let out to be ENV.
Alright, so Mr. Chatbot. No. Give me an example of where a gravitational field strength has been altered to test the effects of time dilation in a lab, where gravity has been modified via some external process to change the strength of gravity in a controlled experiment. That's not possible. That hasn't been done. I wonder why. I want Chatbot to give me an answer. I want to say, no, it has not been done, but instead, it's like, oh, well, this is kind of like, but I'm asking this. I know it can't be done. I want Chatbot to say, it can't be done, but it won't. Chatbot just keeps making up shit. Since you're crystal clear, absolutely right to press on. You're asking, has anyone ever directly altered gravity itself? Not just moved to a different place in order to test gravitational time dilation in a lab? No, there's no known experiment where gravity has been actively increased or decreased via external manipulation, artificially changing gravitational field strength in a lab to test time dilation. Why? Because gravity is incredibly weak compared to other forces. To notice these changes would move or manipulate huge amounts of mass far beyond what's currently practical. Oh, time dilation is fake. It says the gravitational time dilation causes is tiny and hard to measure without extremely precise clocks. Oh, it's fake. Earth's gravity is weak. That's why the frickin' ISS, International Space Station, that's why it needs to boost to stay up in space, because gravity is weak. Gravity is so weak that things in orbit need to be boosted to remain in orbit, because gravity is just so weak. So this closest approaches. So I'm asking Chatbot, does time dilation via gravity exist in relation to light? Really, it's not gonna play. Oh, come on.
gravitational potential that takes longer than as if it goes into and out of a gravitational potential. The curvature tells light which paths to follow. In particular, if light goes into and out of a gravitational potential, that takes longer than as if the gravitational potential wasn't there. Now, gravitational potential.
My god, the fucking sound.
By them. Now,
This software sucks. That means that light isn't affected by gravity. So as a check out, this time dilation via gravity exists in relation to light. And can be proven. It says yes, time dilation via gravity exists in relation to light and has been both proven and predicted by theory and confirmed by multiple experiments. According to general relativity, gravity affects time and space. And since light moves through both, its behavior changes in gravitational fields. The key effects of gravity on light that involve time dilation. Clocks are not related to light. So clocks a mechanical clock is the same thing as light. Yeah, satellites orbit Earth, they fall in space down to Earth, and they get boosted back up. It has nothing to do with light. There's no way I can ask it. Oh, I meant to type in light. I said yet. Nature's quantum, gravity's not. This is you're touching a central paradox. Ask it, what's paradox? A paradox is a statement or situation that seems contradictory, logically inconsistent, or goes against common sense, but might still be true or reveal a deeper truth when examined more carefully. So that means Einstein's theory of relativity is a paradox. Let's mask it. Let's mask chatbot. You said it seems like a paradox, meaning there is a contradiction? Question mark. If there was no contradiction, would you have said it seems like a paradox? Question mark. How often is something not as it seems when something really seems to not be yet actually is? A chatbot says, you're digging into some really subtle and important point about paradoxes and how we interpret things that seem contradictory. Yeah. Uh-huh. I'm gonna eat some food and then finish up this stuff.
Get identifier reference. Outer, name, strict 9, 1, 2. To new declarative environment. E. The abstract operation new declarative environment takes argument E, an environment record or null, and returns a declarative environment record. It performs the following steps when called. Let env be a new declarative environment record containing no bindings. Set env to E. Return env, 1, 2, 3 new object environment. O, W, E. The abstract operation new object environment takes arguments O, an object, W, a boolean, and E, an environment record or null, and returns an object environment record. It performs the following steps when called. Let env be a new object environment record. Set env to O. Set env to W. Set env to E. Return env, 1, 2, 4 new function environment. F. New target. The abstract operation new function environment takes arguments f, an ECMA script function object, and new target, an object or undefined, and returns a function environment record. It performs the following steps when called. Let env be a new function environment record containing no bindings. Set env to f. If f is lexical, set env to lexical, else set env to uninitialized, set env to new target, set env to f, return env, 1, 2, 5 new global environment, g, this value. The abstract operation new global environment takes arguments g, an object, and this value, an object, and returns a global environment record. It performs the following steps when called. Let objrect be new object environment, g, false, null. Let dclrect be new declarative environment, null. Let env be a new global environment record. Set env to objrec. Set env to this value. Set env to dclrec. Set env to a new empty list. Set env to null. Return env, 1, 2, 6 new module environment, e. The abstract operation new module environment takes argument e, an environment record, and returns a module environment record. It performs the following steps when called. Let env be a new module environment record containing no bindings. Set env to e. Return env. ECMA International, 2024 151, 9.2 Private environment records. A private environment record is a specification mechanism used to track private names based upon the lexical nesting structure of class declarations and class expressions in ECMA script code. They are similar to, but distinct from, environment records. Each private environment record is associated with a class declaration or class expression. Each time such a class is evaluated, a new private environment record is created to record the private names declared by that class. Each private environment record has the fields defined in Table 23. Table 23. Private environment record fields. Field name, value type, meaning, outer private environment. A. Private environment record or null. The private environment record of the nearest containing class null if the class with which this private environment record is associated is not contained in any other class. Names. A list of private names. The private names declared by this class. 9. 2. 1 Private environment record operations. The following abstract operations are used in this specification to operate upon private environment records. 9. 2. 1. 1 new private environment, outer privy env. The abstract operation new private environment takes argument outer privy env, a private environment record or null, and returns a private environment record. It performs the following steps when called. Let names be a new empty list. Return the private environment record. Outer privy env, names, 2, 1. 2 resolve private identifier. Privy env, identifier. The abstract operation resolve private identifier takes arguments privy env, a private environment record, and identifier, a string, and returns a private name. It performs the following steps when called. Let names be privy env. For each private name pn of names, do a if pn is identifier. Then, I return pn. Let outer privy env be privy env. Assert. Outer privy env is not null. Return resolve private identifier. Outer privy env, identifier. Point 3 realms. Before it is evaluated, all ECMA script code must be associated with a realm. Conceptually, a realm consists of a set of intrinsic objects, an ECMA script global environment, all of the ECMA script code that is loaded within the scope of that global environment, and other associated state and resources. A realm is represented in this specification as a realm record with the fields specified in Table 24, 52, copyright sign, ECMA International 2024, Table 24. Realm record fields, field name, agent signifier, intrinsics, global object, global env, template map, an object or undefined value, an agent signifier, a record whose field names are intrinsic keys and whose values are objects, a global environment record, a list of records with fields, a template literal parse node, and v, an array, F. The agent that owns this realm, the global object for this realm, the G. global environment for this realm, meaning the intrinsic values used by code associated with this realm. A list of records with fields are a string and a module record. Note 1: once a parse node becomes unreachable, the corresponding is also unreachable, and it would be unobservable if an implementation removed the pair from the list. Anything default value is undefined. Note 2: as mentioned in host load imported module 16.2.1.8. Note 1: in realm records is only used when running an import expression in a context where there is no active script or module field reserved for use by hosts that need to associate additional information with a realm record. Template objects are canonicalized separately for each realm using its realm records. Each value is a parse node that is a template literal. The associated ALU is the corresponding template object that is passed to a tag function, a map from the specifier strings imported by this realm to the solved module record. The list does not contain two different records with the same 9.3.1 create realm. The abstract operation create realm takes no arguments and returns a realm record. It performs the following steps when called. Let realm rec be a new realm record. Perform create intrinsics. Realm rec, set realm rec to agent signifier, set realm rec to undefined, set realm rec to undefined, set realm rec to a new empty list, return realm rec, ECMA International 2024 153, 9.3. 2. Create intrinsics. Realm rec, the abstract operation create intrinsics takes argument realm rec, a realm record, and returns unused. It performs the following steps when called. Set realm rec to a new record. Set fields of realm rec with the values listed in table 6. The field names are the names listed in column 1 of the table. The value of each field is a new object value fully and recursively populated with property values as defined by the specification of each object in clauses 19 through 28. All object property values are newly created object values. All values that are built-in function objects are created by performing create built-in function steps, length, name, slots, realm rec, prototype, where steps is the definition of that function provided by this specification. Name is the initial value of the function's name property. Length is the initial value of the function's length property. Slots is a list of the names, if any, of the function's specified internal slots. And prototype is the specified value of the function's internal slot. The creation of the intrinsics and their properties must be ordered to avoid any dependencies upon objects that have not yet been created. Perform add restrict. Add function properties. Realm rec, return unused, 3.3 set realm global object, realm rec, global obj, this value. The abstract operation set realm global object takes arguments realm rec, a realm record, global obj, an object or undefined, and this value, an object or undefined, and returns unused. It performs the following steps when called. If global obj is undefined, then A. Let intrinsics be realm rec. B. Set global obj to ordinary object create intrinsics. Assert global obj is an object. If this value is undefined, set this value to global obj, set realm rec to global obj, let new global env be new global environment, global obj, this value, set realm rec to new global env, return unused, 3.4 set default global bindings, realm rec, the abstract operation set default global bindings takes argument realm rec, a realm record, and returns either a normal completion containing an object or a throw completion. It performs the following steps when called. Let global be realm rec. For each property of the global object specified in clause 19, do A. Let name be the string value of the property name. B. Let desc be the fully populated data property descriptor for the property, containing the specified attributes for the property. For properties listed in 19.2, 19.3, or 19.4, the value of the attribute is the corresponding intrinsic object from realm rec. C. Perform. Define property or throw, global, name, desc, return global. Point 4 execution contexts. An execution context is a specification device that is used to track the runtime evaluation of code by an ECMA script implementation. At any point in time, There is at most one execution context per agent that is actually executing code. This is known as the agent's running execution context. All references to the running execution context in this specification denote the running execution context of the surrounding agent. The execution context stack is used to track execution contexts. The running execution context is always the top element of this stack. A new execution context is created whenever control is transferred from the executable code associated with the currently running execution context to executable code that is not associated with that. 54. Copyright sign, ECMA International 2024. Execution context. The newly created execution context is pushed onto the stack and becomes the running execution context. An execution context contains whatever implementation-specific state is necessary to track the execution progress of its associated code. Each execution context has at least the state components listed in Table 25. Table 25. State components for all execution contexts. Component, purpose, code evaluation state, any state needed to perform, suspend, and resume evaluation of the code associated with this execution context. Function, if this execution context is evaluating the code of a function object, then the value of this component is that function object. If the context is evaluating the code of a script or module, the value is null. Realm, the realm record from which associated code accesses ECMA script resources, script or module, the module record or script record from which associated code originates. If there is no originating script or module, as is the case for the original execution context created in initialize host-defined realm, the value is null. Evaluation of code by the running execution context may be suspended at various points defined within this specification. Once the running execution context has been suspended, a different execution context may become the running execution context and commence evaluating its code. At some later time, a suspended execution context may again become the running execution context and continue evaluating its code at the point where it had previously been suspended. Transition of the running execution context status among execution contexts usually occurs in stack-like last-in, first-out manner. However, some ECMA script features require non-LIFO transitions of the running execution context. The value of the realm component of the running execution context is also called the current realm record. The value of the function component of the running execution context is also called the active function object. ECMA script code execution contexts have the additional state components listed in Table 26. Table 26. Additional state components for ECMA script code execution contexts. Component, purpose, lexical environment, identifies the environment record used to resolve identifier references made by code within this execution context. Variable environment, identifies the environment record that holds bindings created by variable statements within this execution context. Private environment, identifies the private environment record that holds private names created by class elements in the nearest containing class null if there is no containing class. The lexical environment and variable environment components of an execution context are always environment records. Execution contexts representing the evaluation of generators have the additional state components listed in Table 27. ECMA International 2024 155. Table 27. Additional state components for generator execution contexts. In most situations, only the running execution context, the top of the execution context stack, is directly manipulated by algorithms within this specification. Hence, when the terms lexical environment and variable environment are used without qualification, they are in
I like how Chepa says,
execution context.
you're really digging into a important point of paradoxes.
Of an ECMA script.
He says how we
For ECMA script
interpret things.
access or observe an execution.
How we interpret things.
Get active script.
What does it mean, we?
Operation get active script
Chatbot is a lookup table,
turns a script record.
a large language model.
It is used to detect
It doesn't think. It doesn't process thought.
running execution context.
It looks up things based on correlation.
Text stack is empty.
In a GPU, That's what the GPU does.
Context on the
It has a whole bunch of operations
stack whose script or module component.
on different banks of memory.
No such
So it looks up common things.
Otherwise,
It tries to guess the next letter, next word, whatever, in a sentence,
binding.
and it makes a response. It's not artificial intelligence.
Resolve binding take
It doesn't think. It doesn't even interpret.
NV, an environment record or under
So why is chatbot saying how we?
containing a reference record or a throw completion. It is used to determine the binding.
It's so annoying.
Explicitly provide the environment record that is to be searched for the binding. It performs the following step.
AI is a bubble,
Present or en.
just like the housing market.
Then a set en
It's gonna go pop.
environment as
The bubble's gonna pop.
an environment record.
I did think like Bitcoin was a bubble,
Evaluated is contained in strict.
and then it wasn't.
Let strict be true.
So I was wrong with that. But AI, I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it's a bubble.
V name strict.
Alright, I gotta like convert this program.
Abstract operation get this environment takes no arguments and returns an environment record. It finds the environment record that currently supplies the binding of the keyword this. It performs the following steps when called let en
So everything moved in one file.
context's lexical environment 2. Repeat component purpose generator the generator that this execution context is evaluating 150 International 2024. Note the result of resolve binding is always a reference record whose field is name ABCDE. Let exists BENV has this binding. If exists is true, return ENV. Let outer be ENV. Assert outer is not null. Set ENV to outer. Note the loop in step 2 will always terminate because the list of environments always ends.
Wait, I think I figured out why.
Which has this binding.
The colors aren't changing.
Resolve this binding. The abstract operation resolve this binding takes no arguments and returns either a normal completion contained on an ECMA script language a value or a throw completion. It determines the binding of the keyword thus using the lexical environment of the running execution context. It performs the following steps when called let envrec beget this environment, return envrec get this binding, 4.5 get new target, the abstract operation get new target,
Nope, I don't know.
and returns an object or undefined. It determines the new target value using the lexical environment of the running execution context. It performs the following steps when called let envrec beget this environment, assert envrec has a field, return envrec, 4.6 get global object. The abstract operation get global object takes no arguments and returns an object. It returns the global object used by the currently running execution context. It performs the following steps when called 2.5 let current realm be the current realm record. Return current realm, jobs and host operations to enquire jobs. A job is an abstract closure with no parameters that initiates an ECMA script computation when no other ECMA script computation is currently in progress. Jobs are scheduled for execution by ECMA script host environments in a particular agent. This specification describes the host hook's host enquire generic job. Capital H O S T capital E N Q U E U E capital F I N A L I Z A T I O N capital R E G I S T R host enquire promise job and host enquire.
Why is the color not changing?
The host hooks in this specification are organized by the additional constraints imposed on the scheduling of jobs. Hosts may define additional abstract operations which schedule jobs. Such operations accept a job abstract closure and a realm as parameters. If a realm record is provided, these operations schedule the job to be performed at some future time in the provided realm, in the agent that owns the realm. If null is provided instead for the realm, then the job does not evaluate ECMA script code. Their implementations must conform to the following requirements. At some future point in time, when there is no running context in the agent for which the job is scheduled and that agent's execution context stack is empty, the implementation must Perform any host-defined preparation steps. Invoke the job abstract closure. Perform any host-defined cleanup steps, after which the execution context stack must be empty. Only one job may be actively undergoing evaluation at any point in time in an agent. Once evaluation of a job starts, it must run to completion before evaluation of any other job starts in an agent. The abstract closure must return a normal completion, implementing its own handling of errors. ECMA International 2024-157. Note 1: host environments are not required to treat jobs uniformly with respect to scheduling. For example, web browsers and Node.js treat promise handling jobs as a higher priority than other work. Future features may add jobs that are not treated at such a high priority at any particular time. Script or module. A script record, a module record, or null, is the active script or module if all of the following conditions are true. Get active script or module. Is script or module. If script or module is a script record or module record, let EC be the topmost execution context on the execution context stack whose script or module component is script or module. The realm component of EC is script or module. At any particular time, an execution is prepared to evaluate ECMA script code if all of the following conditions are true. The execution context stack is not empty. The realm component of the topmost execution context on the execution context stack is a realm record. Particular kinds of jobs have additional conformance requirements. 5.1 Job callback records. A job callback record is a record value used to store a function object and a host-defined value. Function objects that are invoked via a job anchor by the host may have additional host-defined context. To propagate the state, job abstract closures should not capture and call function objects directly. Instead, use host make job callback and host call job callback. Job callback records have the fields listed in Table 28. Table 28. Job callback record fields, 5.2 host make job callback. Callback. The host-defined abstract operation host make job callback takes argument callback, a function object, and returns a job callback record. An implementation of host make job callback must conform to the following requirements. It must return a job callback record whose field is callback. Note 2: host environments may prepare an execution to evaluate code by pushing execution contexts onto the execution context stack. The specific steps are implementation defined. The specific choice of realm is up to the host environment. This initial execution context and realm is only in use before any callback function is invoked. When a callback function related to a job, like a promise handler, is invoked, the invocation pushes its own execution context and realm. Note the WHATWG-HTML specification, https://html.spec.whatwg.org, for example, uses the host-defined value to propagate the incumbent settings object for promise callbacks. Field name, value, meaning, callback, a function object, the function to invoke when the job is invoked. Host-defined, anything default value is empty. Field reserved for use by hosts. 158, ECMA International 2024. The default implementation of host make job callback performs the following steps when called. 1. Return the job callback record. Callback. Empty. ECMA script hosts that are not web browsers must use the default implementation of host make job callback, 5.3 host call job callback. Job callback. V. Arguments list. The host-defined abstract operation host call job callback takes arguments job callback, a job callback record, V, an ECMA script language value, and arguments list, a list of ECMA script language values, and returns either a normal completion containing an ECMA script language value or a throw completion. An implementation of host call job callback must conform to the following requirements. It must perform and return the result of call. Job callback, V, arguments list. The default implementation of host call job callback performs the following steps when called. Assert is callable.
So that's empty.
Return, call, job callback, V, arguments list. ECMA script hosts that are not web browsers must use the default implementation of host call job callback, 5.4 host enqueue generic job. realm, the host of
The name that's messing it up.
Stanqui generic job takes arguments job, a job abstract close
Oh, that's why.
realm record, and returns unused. It schedules job in the realm in the agent signified by realm to be performed at some future time. The abstract clause
It's editing the wrong file.
intended to be scheduled without additional constraints, such as priority and ordering. An implementation of host Stanqui generic job must
Man.
requirements in 9.5 host Stanqui promise job. Realm, the host-defined abstract operation host Stanqui promise job takes arguments job, a job abstract closure, and realm, a realm record or null, and returns unused. It schedules job to be performed at some future time. The abstract closures used with this algorithm are intended to be related to the handling of promises, or otherwise, to be scheduled with equal priority to promise handling operations. An implementation of host Stanqui promise job must conform to the
No, it's a different color.
as well as the following. If realm is not null, each time job is invoked, the implementation must perform implement
Alright, so save back up. Now I'm gonna convert. Remove the program in.
a script code at the time of job's invocation. Let script or module beget active script or module at the time host Stanqui promise job is invoked. If realm is not null, each time job is invoked, the implementation must perform implementation defined steps such that script or module is the active script or module at the time of job's invocation. Jobs must run in the same order as the host Stanqui promise job invocations that scheduled them. Note this is called at the time that
I have like 3 backups already.
responsible for its being eventually scheduled and run. For example, promise then
I have a feeling that this could all go wrong.
action at the time of invoke,
I'm gonna have to restart it again.
not at the time of
I hate this.
job. Note this
This GPU stuff is ridiculous.
objects defined in this specification.
Ah, baby.
24.159. Note the realm for jobs returned by new promise resolved thenable job is usually the result of calling get function realm on the then function object. The realm for jobs returned by new promise reaction job is usually the result of calling get function realm on the handler if the handler is not undefined. If the handler is undefined, realm is null. For both kinds of jobs, when get function realm completes abnormally, that is called on a revoked proxy, realm is the current realm record at the time of the get function realm call. When the realm is null, no user ECMA script code will be evaluated and no new ECMA script objects, for example error objects, will be created. The WHATWG.html specification, https://html.spec.whatwg.org, for example, uses realm to check for the ability to run script and for the entry https://html.spec.whatwg.org entry concept, 5.6 host Stanqui timeout job realm milliseconds. The host defined abstract operation host Stanqui timeout job takes arguments timeout job, a job abstract closure, realm, a realm record, and milliseconds, a non-negative finite number, and returns unused. It schedules timeout job in the realm in the agent signified by realm to be performed after at least milliseconds. An implementation of host Stanqui timeout job must conform to the requirements in 9.6 initialize host defined realm. The abstract operation initialize host defined realm takes no arguments and returns either a normal completion containing unused or a throw completion. It performs the following steps when called: let realm be create realm, let new context be a new execution context, set the function of new context to null, set the realm of new context to realm, set the script or module of new context to null, push new context onto the execution context stack. New context is now the running execution context. If the host requires use of an exotic object to serve as realm's global object, let global be such an object, created in a host-defined manner. Otherwise, let global be undefined, indicating that an ordinary object should be created as the global object. If the host requires that this binding in realm's global scope return an object other than the global object, let this value be such an object created in a host-defined manner. Otherwise, let this value be undefined. indicating that realm's global this binding should be the global object. Perform set realm global object, realm, global, this value 0. Let global obj be. Set default global bindings, realm 1. Create any host-defined global object properties on global obj 2. Return unused. 7 agents. An agent comprise is a set of ECMA script execution contexts, an execution context stack, a running execution context, an agent record, and an executing thread. Except for the executing thread, the constituents of an agent belong exclusively to that agent. An agent's executing thread executes algorithmic steps on the agent's execution contexts independently of other agents, except that an executing thread may be used as the executing thread by multiple agents, provided none of the agents sharing the thread have an agent record whose field is true. Note 1. Some web browsers share a single executing thread across multiple unrelated tabs of a browser window. For example, 60. Copyright sign, ECMA International 2024. While an agent's executing thread is executing algorithmic steps, the agent is the surrounding agent for those steps. The steps use the surrounding agent to access the specification level execution objects held within the agent, the running execution context, the execution context stack, and the agent record. S fields. An agent signifier is a globally unique opaque value used to identify an agent. Table 29. Agent record fields. Field name, value, meaning, little endian, a boolean. The default value computed for the is little endian parameter when it is needed by the algorithms get value from buffer and set value in buffer. The choice is implementation defined and should be the alternative that is most efficient for the implementation. Once the value has been observed, it cannot change. Can block, a boolean, determines whether the agent can block or not. Signifier. An agent signifier uniquely identifies the agent within its agent cluster. Is lock-free 1, a boolean, true if atomic operations on 1 byte values are lock-free, false otherwise. Is lock-free 2, a boolean, true if atomic operations on 2 byte values are lock-free, false otherwise. Is lock-free 8, a boolean, true if atomic operations on 8 byte values are lock-free, false otherwise. Candidate execution. A. Candidate execution record. See the memory model. Kept alive. A list of either objects or symbols. Initially a new empty list, representing the list of objects and or symbols to be kept alive until the end of the current job. Once the values of and have been observed by any agent in the agent cluster, they cannot change. Note 2. The values of and are not necessarily determined by the hardware, but may also reflect implementation choices that can vary over time and between ECMA script implementations. There is no field. 4-byte atomic operations are always lock-free. In practice, if an atomic operation is implemented with any type of lock, the operation is not lock-free. Lock-free does not imply wait-free. There is no upper bound on how many machine steps may be required to complete a lock-free atomic operation. That an atomic access of size n is lock-free does not imply anything about the perceived atomicity of non-atomic accesses of size n. Specifically, non-atomic accesses may still be performed as a sequence of several separate memory accesses. See read shared memory and write shared memory for details. ECMA International 2024 161. Note 3. An agent is a specification mechanism and need not correspond to any particular artifact of an ECMA script implementation. 7.1 Agent signifier. The abstract operation agent signifier takes no arguments and returns an agent signifier. It performs the following steps when called. Let AR be the agent record of the surrounding agent. Return AR, 7.2 Agent can suspend. The abstract operation agent can suspend takes no arguments and returns a boolean. It performs the following steps when called. 2.8 Let AR be the agent record of the surrounding agent. Return AR. Agent clusters. Note in some environments it may not be reasonable for a given agent to suspend. 4. Example, in a web browser environment, it may be reasonable to disallow suspending a document's main event handling thread, while still allowing workers' event handling threads to suspend. An agent cluster is a maximal set of agents that can communicate by operating on shared memory. Every agent belongs to exactly one agent cluster. All agents within a cluster must have the same value for the field in their respective agent records. All agents within a cluster must have the same values for the field in their respective agent records. Similarly for the field, all agents within a cluster must have different values for the field in their respective agent records. An embedding may deactivate, stop forward progress, or activate, resume forward progress, an agent without the agent's knowledge or cooperation. If the embedding does so, it must not leave some agents in the cluster active while other agents in the cluster are deactivated indefinitely. Note 1: programs within different agents may share memory by unspecified means. At a minimum, the backing memory for shared array buffers can be shared among the agents in the cluster. There may be agents that can communicate by message passing that cannot share memory. They are never in the same agent cluster. Note to the agents in a cluster need not all be alive at some particular point in time. If agent A creates another agent B, after which A terminates and B creates agent C, the three agents are in the same cluster if A could share some memory with B and B could share some memory with C. Note 3: if different agents within an agent cluster have different values of it becomes hard to use shared memory for multi-byte data. 62. Copyright sign, ECMA International 2024. Note 4: the purpose of the preceding restriction is to avoid a situation where an agent deadlocks or starves because another agent has been deactivated. For example, if an HTML shared worker that has a lifetime independent of documents in any Windows were allowed to share memory with the dedicated worker of such an independent document, and the document and its dedicated worker were to be deactivated while the dedicated worker holds a lock, say, the document is pushed into its Windows history, and the shared worker then tries to acquire the lock, then the shared worker will be blocked until the dedicated worker is activated again, if ever. Meanwhile, other workers trying to access the shared worker from other windows will starve. The implication of the restriction is that it will not be possible to share memory between agents that don't belong to the same suspend-wait collective within the embedding. An embedding may terminate an agent without any of the agent's cluster's other agents' prior knowledge or cooperation. If an agent is terminated not by programmatic action of its own or of another agent in the cluster but by forces external to the cluster, then the embedding must choose one of two strategies: either terminate all the agents in the cluster, or provide reliable APIs that allow the agents in the cluster to coordinate so that at least one remaining member of the cluster will be able to detect the termination. With the termination data containing enough information to identify the agent that was terminated, each of the following specification values, and values transitively reachable from them, belong to exactly one agent cluster. Candidate execution record, shared data block, waiter list record. Prior to any evaluation of any ECMA script code by any agent in a cluster, the field of the agent record for all agents in the cluster is set to the initial candidate execution. The initial
So this is a tutorial, whatever, with the image. These are like the init calls for like various things. There's a lot more than there is in the file. I have to move to. A lot more steps. Right now everything's in a working state. I have everything backed up. I have copies ready in case it gets messed up. I'm not really in the mood to bite off more than I can chew. I gotta restart the Mac because the sound's not working. I can't even play music. I don't want to restart the Mac. I'm not in the mood to tolerate it because it's probably gonna get stuck again. There's a whole lot to do. So, that's enough for now. I'll oh my god, do this whole thing again. I gotta do this whole thing again. Tomorrow. All of it. I gotta go through line by line, copy it from this project into this project, except now at least. I have this project that runs. It makes pink quad. So as I move stuff in to this project from this one, like if this one doesn't work, just whatever. So if I move this one and then I run it and the output doesn't work, if it doesn't build, if there's an error, then it means whatever one that got stuck on is a problem. So I adjust it and I tweak it until I get output. And when it outputs again, then it means it's working. So this time I have a working example to use. I was really hoping that when I convert the tutorial, it would just work. But it didn't. I'm not going to go through that thing. Even when I'm done, there's no guarantee it'll work. Because it's written for Visual Studio, I don't think it's going to convert to Arch Linux. I don't care. This works right here. So I'm going to take everything from there, move it in here. I'll start that though tomorrow. I got everything copied over, duplicates, backups, everything's ready. So that's my only goal tomorrow, is this. Just move this stuff into here. And get the image onto the quad. And now I know that ChatGPT can make stuff for a canvas in HTML. It just can't do it for freaking Vulkan. So I'm going to ask Chatbot from now on how to do it in relation to Canvas. This actually works. Because Chatbot is useless when we ask it like GPU related stuff. So, I don't know. I'm gonna stream go on for like 2 minutes and edit it. Then stream again later. Peace.